Okay, so first of all, I just wanted to make sure I understand like what you do at Quantic. Like I've read
Yes.
a bit about, so I know that you're lead motion kit lead, but I know you also do like
Yes.
keyframe 3D animation. So I was wondering like what you do at Quantic right now.
I was mainly animating, so it could be like keyframe and of course motion capture. So editing motion capture files. Compared to what I'm doing now, it was like production. We had that list of animations to do for particular scenes or things like this, etc. So we did the animation as they were designed, you know. So for this part, it could be motion capture and keyframe. Since then, I had more responsibility. Not just before being a lead motion kit animator. Um, the responsibilities just changed. So for now, because of what I'm doing right now, that is designing what the animators should do, leading the team, simply managing the team, and other stuff, I have less time to animate actually. So, but the interesting thing right now is that even if I don't touch the mouse, and just animate some stuff, everything is in the head. So the part of my job today is to design with others, with the team, with directors, with game designers and programmers also, animation programmers. We design animation systems so that at the end we produce those animations. So there's like two parts. Either we produce it in keyframe, either we shoot with actors the animations that we want. So that's what I'm doing right now. That is, I'm part. Let's say that I'm part of the design team.
I'm a huge fan of Detroit Become Human and a lot of Quantic
Oh.
Dreams other games. I've been like a huge fan since Heavy Rain, since that was like when I was like 12 or 13. So
Yes.
and so does that mean like for every character, like I was reading on an interview post that I think you did with Quantic Dream, that mentioned that you like start by
The
coming up,
characterization of characters, for example.
yeah, like coming up with ideas for what, based on their actual character and what their behavior would be
Exactly.
like.
Yes.
So
Yes.
then like, okay,
That's exactly this. Exactly. That's what I'm calling designing.
okay.
Designing the animation. The first, the, f- I mean, this process is very long. So we always start by asking ourselves, sorry, what we want at the end of the game. What should the animation look like? What do we want to improve in the animation industry? What do we want to invent? Because at Quantic we really like to redo the world. We always want to be better than the previous games, technologies, etc. So we start with a little group of designers. That is, we have the director, the shooting director. So the director is David, and we have a shooting director, the one that will cast the actors, the one that will make them play during shooting, etc. We also have the game designers. Even if we're the creative part of the team, we can't do what we want. So we have to follow the rules of the games and put our expertise in some stuff. So speaking about Detroit, for instance, what we did is we spent 2-3 months just discussing about the specific characters. With one objective is that the objective is maybe shooting or casting characters or stuff like this. So we read the game design, we read the script, and then each department tries to figure out what he wants for this character or for this scene, and then we come up with the ideas. We just like brainstorm or stuff like this. Use video reference. We do animatics, film.
Yeah.
Take our camera and we run on the street to I don't know, to capture some stuff, things like this. So we have a lot of we try to be creative with the materials, and for the only focus being we want this character to be the best, to have the best personality, the best work, the best attitude, and stuff like this. Examples. And then, so this part in Quantic, we call this characterization. So, okay, so now we know, we have like an idea of where we want the character to, we want the character to be. Then we put it in context. I mean, okay, this character in this scene, for example, Connor was the very first character that we produced. On which we had this whole process of design, etc. So we put it in the first game, in the first level of a game, that is Hostage. And what we did, you have to know that in between the model is produced, or some kind of prototype model is produced. The animation team is responsible for making the animation pipeline, you know, the rigging, etc., etc. So there's a whole team using this example, using this mesh to work on the future pipeline of animation, etc. But the fact is that we finally have a character to play with. So we go and say, okay, now let's see if what we thought to do is a good process. So we go on shooting, we go on casting, etc. And during those whole process, we always we make a list of the pipeline, and then we have to we make a proof of concept. I mean, you know, are we shooting the right way? We test the time of shootings and stuff like this. For after shooting, okay, how long the animator is receiving the animation, etc., etc. So we see if it's if we're going in the right way. I mean, with the pipeline, and then maybe after we'll talk about how to pre-produce for mo-kits, for motion kits. But let's say that we have the first motion kit to play with. We go in the first scene, and then we just play and try to get some ideas. Okay, one will say, "Oh, here he can look at the fish," you know.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a fish. What can we do with this? You know. Okay, we'll do this. Here he can step over someone. Here he can push the chair or stuff like this, you know. We try to brainstorm about what the player would do in the scene and how he'll do it, you know, stuff like this. We call this contextual attitudes. That is the little stuff that is not really gameplay, but cool. You know.
Context.
This contextual attitude is the name that we've given at Quantic. All those little stuff that's not so important for the game, but makes the player be really. Our focus at Quantic on Detroit is to make the player really feel what he's doing, and that even though you're controlling the player, he has his own mind, you know. He can do stuff that maybe you wouldn't have done, you know. Like, for instance, I'll give you an example that we haven't added in the game. It's like Marcus passing by a frame, a painting, and just a painting which is like this, and just pushing it and putting it in the right way. You know, some stuff like this.
That's interesting.
That is, okay, at the end, what did it bring to the game? No, but it brought something to the gamers,
Yeah. Well, I feel like what you're describing as like the small details are like some of the most important things, because even with like the Connor picking up the fish moment, like I know at like the E3 conference where they did like a first playthrough of Detroit, like
Yes.
like the fish picking up the fish thing was like a whole huge joke and stuff. And I think like little moments like that really build the character.
Yes.
Um, yeah.
But I'm really proud of Detroit because it's been before producing the game.
Mm-hmm.
That is, everyone goes to his department and just work. All the brainstorm that we had made this game like unique for us.
Mm-hmm.
We and we were afraid, that I mean we. I was afraid that some stuff might be like with the gamers like it or not, stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
But after seeing reactions, it wasn't a waste of time to do this and go that far,
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. We're quite proud about this.
Yeah, I definitely think you have reason to, because that's probably one of my favorite games, because
Well, thank you.
I mean, I just really appreciate like the things that might have made you nervous. I personally really appreciate in the game, like even like I think that even compared to like Beyond Two Souls or especially Heavy Rain, because that's so much older, I think that there's so much more attention paid to detail in Detroit, and it's also integrated into the game in a way that like every single detail you see can influence the ending, right? And not only that, it also really builds up the characters. So, I mean, I personally want to say thank you for that, but I also, yeah, I really appreciate that. But I'm wondering, like, are there any details that you thought were like that struck you or you thought were important to include in the game?
The first thing that I'm thinking of is the whole discussion we had about what would be the relation between Kira and Alice, for instance, because it's a very sensitive subject. Everything that goes on with Alice and Kira also in the game. So we didn't want to, just close our eyes and say, okay, let's be like caricatural about the situation. Let's push it, And the whole stuff that we had with the child abuse movement, etc. So it was the risk. I mean, but even though it was sensible, I don't know, sensitive,
sensitive, I think, yeah.
Sensitive, yeah. We didn't want to we wanted to push it really, really, really far. For motion kits, for instance, it was we had like great characters, great actresses, indeed, particularly for Alice, and she often made us cry on stage, even on the shooting on the MoCap studio. Even though it's motion kit meaning gameplay, that is, you only do animations just to move your character and stuff like this, so it might be really technical, but we wanted to add this emotional feeling on, even if you're just controlling someone and focusing on what you're doing, because in games when you play, you see further and you pretty the player in front of you, in front of a camera, you just your focus is going forward and then just playing the game. But we wanted to add those little stuff that just brings your eyes to the player, stuff like this. That is to catch the eye. I was looking for the expression. And in Kara's motion kits, and in Kara and Alice's motion kit, we had those couple of idols that you can see, which by just looking at them, you know what they're thinking in their mind, stuff like this. So we really worked hard on it. Even while you're running, there's some look at with each other or stuff like this. We try to really put distinctive animations to say, hey, look at it. Look at it now. Because it's really important for the scene. It's telling something. And we want to tell you those stuff, You have like small messages everywhere that we try to put everywhere in our players' movement, So we've succeeded, I think, in some form. Maybe not totally, but it's really satisfying for us, So yes, this was very important for me to really work on Kara's and Alice's relationship because it was important for me. So just it's as simple as that.
So do you mean from the standpoint of like motion capture and making sure that that's translated well into like the 3D animations?
Motion capture for me is just a mean. We could have done keyframe, It's just how you produce the animations, actually, Even if motion capture seems to be like the easiest way to produce animations, the most important aspect of motion capture are the actors, actually. If the actors are not good, the animations won't be good, So if the actors do not succeed to transmit with their body and facial animation what the message that you want to send, it fails, Keyframe motion capture, for me, it's not the most important part. Is really the whole work of characterization that you did on the character. And the ideas that you have brainstormed before and prototyped, etc. So I don't know if I was clear.
No, I think that answers my question. Do actors have to like act more like exaggeratedly, or is I don't really know what they're called, but like all the things on them, is it sensitive enough where they can act like how they would in like for like a movie and it's fine?
Actually, they can act as they want, and particularly in Quantic, we don't like to overact. When I'm working with the shooting director Benjamin Dibling, and every time that an actor is overacting, we're like, because it's not genuine, it's not natural, and we like honesty in the acting. We don't just pick up actors like this, After having this whole process of designing the actor on paper, we cast actors. For me, I cast movement. We cast, I don't know, like maybe not 1 year, but we had like a month of casting. And for Marcus, for example, before Jesse William, is the main character, but his body double had to first walk like him and be able to play also this kind of personality. Kara is the same, Connor is the same, etc. So we try to see if an actor can be as natural as as natural as he can in this casting part. And then we always say, don't exaggerate, don't overact, just be yourself, natural. I see some videos of making of, of Detroit, where you hear Ben saying natural, more natural, more natural,
That's funny.
Stuff like this. So technically, what your body do in motion capture is just like, if you do this, you'll see this, so no problem. So even if you do this, you'll see it, it's very, very sensitive. And actors don't have to exaggerate for us to see the result, I mean. That's it.
Is it difficult, I mean, for me personally, there aren't any classes offered on, motion capture, right? Like, every other aspect of game development, there might be classes, but I think motion capture and translating that to 3D animations is something that's still, a little more exclusive. You have to be a professional in it. So how would you describe that you got into it? And, were there any difficulties of going from, keyframe animation to motion capture animation?
Yeah. From my experience, I self-trained. I don't know how
that
to
makes
say
sense.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I immediately started in. Let's start over. So I started with keyframe in 3D animation studio, French 3D animation studio, and I work in cartoons. And then in this same studio, they wanted to open a motion capture studio. So this was my first experience with motion capture. So I've been trained in this particular studio about the pipeline. First of all, what are the markers and stuff like this? Why do we have to be to have 3D cameras? Distance is important, etc., etc. Training putting markers on actors, etc., etc. So it's really studio-based training, yeah. But you're right, because even here in 3D animation studios, video games, I don't think that there is a motion capture studio at school, Yeah, you're right about this. We should do something about this.
Yeah, no, because I just think it's a interesting, I don't know, bridge between 3D keyframe animation and acting and film. So for me personally, I would be super interested in seeing how it works professionally. But how does the pipeline for motion capture work differently from just keyframing? Because I mean, from my perception, it seems that you do the motion capture and then you of course have to go in and edit it afterwards.
Let's talk about the motion capture pipeline. So after shooting, let's say, after the shooting, there's the motion capture team who cleans up the data. So before giving the data to the animation department, the cleaning of data is just that eventually you have noise on the markers and stuff like this. So they just clean up the curves so that the character is even smoother afterwards. After this, we have the process of retargeting. Retargeting is the process of putting those markers data on a skeleton. The skeleton will be, of course, the final character that is going to be in the game. I mean, at least a light version of this character. Why do we have this retargeting process? Is because our actors are not always at the same height as our in-game characters, For instance, we can shoot a little boy and put it on a giant, with this process of retargeting. And the animators get this skeleton and we put a rig on it so that we can eventually edit the animation. Editing a motion capture means, let's say I have an idle animation. Do you know the idle animation? I'm just still and looking left and right and stuff like this. So so when we shoot motion capture, the whole take is looks like this. There's someone in T-pose. He has to be in T-pose first, and then he goes, maybe he walks and then do some stuff, and then the director say, okay, action. So he just acts. So he plays his idol, and then after playing his idol, we say, okay, 5 seconds still, so that he's neutral, and then okay, cut, T-pose, etc. So this is the animation that the animators are having in their scene. So the editing part will be to cut the frames that we don't want, the T-pose, the walking, etc., and just have the frames that we're interested in, so the idle. And let's say the idle should cycle. That is, at the end of the frame, we don't want like pop, and then pop, etc. We want it to be as fluid as possible. So we take for example, the last frame, and we paste it on the first frame so that it does the loop. We do a lot of stuff in between, of course, working on on a layer, so that we don't deteriorate the base animation, and we only work in layers and copy and paste the first frame to the last frame, and do the blend to the motion capture so that it can be as fluid as possible. This is the editing part of the idle. So we have now editing part of the walk cycle, editing part of a starts animation, the stops animation, the turns, the plants, etc., etc. So we cut really what we shot as we want, following technical constraints, I mean, like left foot, right foot, stuff like this. For keyframe now, keyframe is, we can say it's quicker, because you know what you want to produce. You want to produce an idle, you want to produce a walk cycle, etc. You know that you don't have to cut frames and stuff like this compared to a motion capture data, but it takes more time. On the contrary, it takes maybe less, but time to make the animation as realistic as motion capture. So choose your battle.
That's interesting. Yeah, it seems like so much work to get the motion capture animation into the 3D animation, but then I mean, I personally think that the result seems, I mean, I guess nowadays, you know, we can have so many people working on keyframe animations and make it look just like a real person, but I think that the work Quantic puts into motion capture you definitely get the rewards that you're looking for.
And we can talk all night long about this subject. For me, motion capture has disadvantage also. I mean, motion capture can also make the animation feel heavy, you know, not. It's weird to say that, heavy and not unnatural, but it's like, you know, for gameplay animations, you want your character to react as you're pushing the stick, for example. You don't want to push the stick and then he goes to the walk cycle and stuff like this, which actually a human does. When you decide to walk, you have this curve that does whoop, like this, you know. But in games, you want the curve to be like puff, you know, stuff like this. So the disadvantage also about the motion capture is that animation tend to be like really, you know, heavy in the feeling. I mean, one little trick that we do is that we just accelerate a little bit. We speed up a little bit the animation, just enough to make the walking, for example, the walking feeling good and fluid, So there's a couple of tricks that to erase this feeling too. And compared to keyframe might look unnatural. Some poses might be unnatural, but if the feeling is good, it works. Sometimes you don't have to be like super. You don't have to respect exactly human body locomotion, in keyframe. I don't recommend this, to be like as.
No, I think I know what you mean in general though, because like even for traditional hand-drawn animation, like you want to exaggerate everything, right? Because if you draw like a ball bouncing like how you think you see it, it's gonna look really like flat and like, as you're saying, like heavy.
Yes.
So
yes.
I would assume that the same goes for, editing and motion capture, where you have to make everything a little, as you're saying, accelerate some parts more.
Exactly. Speaking about this, one trick in keyframe, or even motion capture, it's as I said, motion capture and keyframe for me are pretty much the same. It's animation. It's just how you produce. When you hit someone in games, I mean, I think in other animation fields also, when you hit someone, the frame where the impact is cut, it's like before even touching it, the head is like this, it's like there's no impact.
Yeah.
But it's just like poof, and it does the trick. It's like, oh man, what punch, and you just got the frame. So we do like really stuff like this to make the animation look more vivid and more natural, really.
Are there any like particular types of animations that are more difficult in motion capture for video games?
In motion, difficult. We have like props animations, vehicle animations. We haven't done right now animals. Even if studios like Ubisoft like capture horses or stuff like this. But for me, I cannot speak about the motion capture in the place of the motion capture department, but from my perspective, the real difficulty is about constructing, for example, a vehicle. Is really constructing the vehicle itself, because when you have markers and stuff like this with the retargeting process, it's pretty much straightforward, but it's really preparing all those stuff before even shooting. I mean, for example, on Beyond Two Souls, we had this huge motorcycle, stuff like this, or we build like like a platform for an helicopter, with people like shaking the platform, but there was no helicopter at all in the scene, I mean, the difficulty, it's no, I don't think it's not that difficult. It's only a matter of time, And I cannot talk about at the place of the facial animation department, and because yes, this the pipeline is might seem already, time consuming, etc. But with the help of technology that we create at Quantic, we try to make the facial pipeline more less time consuming and stuff like this, So while shooting, I mean, because again, retargeting and what is going on after, it's pretty straightforward. So
did you imagine like in college, for example, or even younger, what kind of idea did you have about what you would do professionally, and is it close to what you're doing now, or?
Actually, yes, it is. Yes. I think the first time that I wanted to, I didn't know at this time that it would be like video games, like really video games. You have to imagine that in my country at my time, there was nothing. There was no 3D studios, no 3D schools, no and video game, and I didn't even have a computer at home. Yes, you see, so video games were like, wow, what's this thing? I was 9 when I discovered Tomb Raider, for example. And I always tell this story because it's really what's changed my focus since then. It's when I saw Tomb Raider. After the game, I saw just the credits, at the end, and it just popped in my head that, and I realized that people have been working on this, but while I was playing at this game, that never occurred to me. It was like I was playing and interacting with a character by magic, It's like, and then yes, since then, I really tried to focus my studies, for instance, with this idea, that is, I want to be in the multimedia industry. Video games for me was like the top of the thing, like I couldn't touch being in Mauritius. It was like no way, it's never going to happen. But let's try to be like a designer or stuff like this, something in interactivity, because I don't know why. I think I'm not in video games for nothing. I'm a fan of movement and interactivity. It has to be interactive, So I was like web design, and then I really had the chance to start in the first 3D animation studio in Mauritius. So it was like a dream for me. It was for a 3D animation series, for TV series. It wasn't actually for a video game, but this is how I started, how I started after. So my studies, I really wanted to concentrate on arts. I knew, I don't know why, but I knew that at this time that I had to concentrate also on the technical part, that is computers. And mathematics also. So maybe I just love that. That's why I was interested in those subjects. But yes, I was pretty much really focused on. I knew somehow that I wanted to be where I am today. Yeah, in video games. Yeah.
That's funny.
And I worked a lot for this.
Yeah. That's funny that you actually mentioned like mathematics, and I think it must have been on the same Quantic Dream interview that you also do programming.
Yes.
I was wondering like what kind do you do, if you do anything aside from like web development?
I do a lot of stuff aside. It's been a long while that I've not do web design, because it was like the very first approach of programming for me. When you want to program. I didn't have courses, attended schools for programming. I never had programming lessons, at school, stuff like this. So it was only on the internet and books and stuff like this. But and so you always you start with web design, HTML and stuff. But today, I know a lot of languages that I've learned. for my particular projects. For instance, let's say JavaScript. I started really, it started to become really serious for me, programming. I mean, when I started JavaScript and doing my small application, my small app for capturing my movement. So it's just a project that I have aside. I capture my movements and then draw pictures with the curves, etc., etc. So this was my first serious programming. Today I'm more focused on C# and I'm learning also in parallel C++. You know. So what mathematics helped me, of course. The interest in being technical helped me and helped me in continuing to learn programming. And at work, at first, it helped me to understand what the programmers were trying to tell me. Mm-hmm. You know, like a programmer speaking to you, you have to really focus, you know. But it's cool. They're my best team ever, programmers. Mm-hmm. But it helped me to organize also organize my thoughts. I don't know how to tell this, because in programming you have to have like this structure, this architecture, and it really helps me to architect my animation prototypes. I can't give you examples right now, but being technical helps me being creative. Being creative helps me also to be technical.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I also looked at like your Tumblr, and I was interested in like the art that you were creating there. I didn't know that you translated it over to programming, which is like even more interesting, but I just thought like the way you, I don't know, approach the world is like very mathematical, and it's really interesting. Like especially I don't know exactly how to describe it, and I might be wrong, but like the ones where it's like the vibrations of your travel. Yeah, I thought that one is like, I would have never thought of that, but it's so interesting. Yeah.
But actually, this is there's a name for this. I think it's creative programming. Those bunch of programmers being really creative with just code, you know. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of stuff going on in this world, you know. Creative coding. That's the word, creative coding. And for instance, there are like softwares like in JavaScript there are like there's like p5.js or processing, really making non coders be able to do art with lines of code, you know, making it easy. Those are softwares that makes your life easy when you don't come from the programming world, you know, at the beginning. And there's also this interactive part that I really like with coding. That is, you can code, adapt, etc., etc. But the most important thing is what the person using the app is feeling or whatever, you know. So it's the user experience that is a really important one when you're programming stuff. So games, that's why games are cool too, you know.
Yeah.
So for movement, I think I'm crazy about movement. So I don't know. I'm maybe it's the job also, but I'm so used to look at actors walking, actors moving, looking at their hips, looking at their arms, looking at their feet, etc. Trying to really point out what's not going on, or it's not going right in this animation. I'm so used to this that when I walk, I know that, I don't know, a person maybe has a backache, you know, or stuff like this. The curve is not so so for this I wanted to capture this. My ideal project is to have this huge app where you see curves everywhere, and that you have this app on your phone, and I can VR your movements or whatever, just tag the world. Yeah, but my drawings really show what I love. I really like to capture movement, and I really like the concept that what you're seeing it's not just a painting of a flat painting of something. It's really a moment, Even if it's 2D, it's really a moment captured from one point to the other. So I like to capture my friends, for example, when they're dancing, etc., and just say, "Oh, you dance like me."
That's so interesting.
So,
That's really interesting how you just bring everything together and apply it to your job professionally. I have a lot of respect for that, and being able to like combine, like, you're interested in programming and art and like animation and movement all into one thing.
That's one reflection that one thought that I had a couple of years earlier, when I told you before that it's only experience that tells you things, etc. What you're saying, I didn't know that, like, I don't know, 10 years before, it's like having those paths, those interests. I like movement, I like mathematics. Oh, it's 2 paths away for now, and little by little, if of course you do you do what you like with passion and continue and persevere, etc., one day, whenever, they just merge, the paths just merge, and then you say, "Oh, yes, I'm not. I am what all those paths had led me to. One way or another, they just become one and only path, and then you're like a revelation when it comes. Oh." So. Yeah, you're right about this. What I'm doing right now at Quantic is really a mix of all those interests that I had, even if at first you're like, how will mathematics help me in animation, How will programming help me with animation? There's two different things, But when those paths merge and you are doing actually something that combines everything, all the subjects, you say, okay, you were right. You should continue to persevere. So.
Well, that's great. Yeah, I think that's a great approach to have towards career and life and everything. I think I have like one or two last questions.
Yes.
So I'm not exactly sure how this could apply to you, but I've just been asking this to every person that I've interviewed. If you had like infinite time and resources, what kind of game would you like to create? And maybe for you, that could be not necessarily a game, but it could be like an art form or a character, for example.
For me, if I had a game to produce, to develop, I like to post messages, and there's one message that I really like to talk about is self-training, and make people see that it's not impossible to make your own stuff, even when you know nothing, And what I wanted to talk about is if I had like unlimited resources, I would do, and that's what I'm doing actually. So I would do my game all by myself, Simply as simple as that, just to become more, to know more things, to learn more stuff, and nothing is impossible, So I don't know if I was clear.
No, I think that answers my question. I really want to thank you for your time. Thank you so much, Ingrid. I really appreciate the time and all the
My
knowledge that you
pleasure,
shared
really.
with me. Yeah.
Really.
All right. Thank you so much, Ingrid, and have a nice day.
You too. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, too. Bye.
Bye-bye.